Rollie, great news.
What's up, Nicole?
You've heard how Project 2025 is coming and it's going to be so bad for the climate?
Yeah, I've been doing a ton of research about it, and it's bad.
Well, apparently, Donald Trump isn't even friggin' associated with it, so it doesn't matter who becomes president, because it's not going to happen.
Oh, Nicole, have I got some videos for you to watch and other people to listen to you watching them. What's the title of this podcast, Nicole?
The Climate Denier's Playbook.
That's right. And it's not every day that you make a title for a podcast and then a couple years later, somebody comes out with a literal, actual climate denier's playbook that we get to then have on the podcast. It's kismet. It was meant to be. It makes you believe in Jesus Christ.
It sure does.
Of Nazareth.
Oh, I was thinking of Jesus Christ of Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, not that guy.
Okay.
That guy is cool. He's got a kegerator, but I'm not talking about that guy. Okay, so this is called Project 2025. Now, I asked producer Ben to go around the internet and find a bunch of different clips of
When you
celebrities.
say that, I imagine producer Ben on like a surfboard, like going through the internet, like it's the 90s, like it's the cover of that book.
And he's like collecting clips in a big burlap sack or something. Yeah. And people, and like maybe there's like polar bears waving to him. Yeah, that's fun. But no, I asked Ben to surf on a surfboard to find a bunch of different clips of Project 2025 to make a supercut of people saying it. And then he just found a supercut that somebody already made of people saying it.
Ugh, so much easier.
And so we're going to play that. Work smarter, not harder.
This is Project 2025.
A radical agenda.
The extreme MAGA Republican effort
to return America to a dark past.
Project 2025 has grown into one of the most hotly debated controversies of the presidential race.
What do you see there, Nicole?
That was a little clip of The Daily Show. That
That's
was a little over the shoulder with host Desi Leidick talking about Project 2025.
So you are already fully briefed on this.
Well, yeah, but our audience isn't, Rollie, and I have to play the role of the audience as chair 2 of the podcast.
Okay, now I will go ahead and say I think that in the past month, I have done enough digging into Project 2025 that I will find some new morsels for you to chew on.
I'm positive you will.
Okay.
Project 2025 has grown into one of the most hotly debated controversies of the presidential race. It has become a rallying cry for Democrats, while Donald Trump has distanced himself from the far-right policy playbook.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
Here's an inside look at how Project 2025 is shifting campaign strategies and voter decisions ahead of the election.
All right, cool. That was actually a very well done supercut. Because there's supercuts where you just like cut a bunch of shit together. Mm-hmm. And there's supercuts where you like make a bunch of different people say the same thing.
You know, I would call that a super duper cut.
That's where I used to get my hair cut. So broadly speaking, Project 2025 is one in a series of what the Heritage Foundation, which is an ultra-conservative group, calls their mandates for leadership. They make these giant multi-hundred-page policy documents for a conservative president that will come into office. In this case, Project 2025 was made for Donald Trump.
For who?
Was made for Donut Trump. So the Heritage Foundation is kind of the ringleader. They put Project 2025 together, but in order to get all the different policy recommendations, they reached out to over 100 different conservative groups, and they helped them write their 920-ish page tome that became the Project 2025 paper.
Not enough tomes in modern politics, I think.
Say, it's hard to read a tome because of podcasts, I think.
That's true.
All right, and there's some pretty extreme shit in the Project 2025 playbook. They want to roll back abortion access, including access to medication through the mail. Project 2025 wants to abolish the entire Department of Education. They want to ban pornography. I know you love that porno stuff, Nicole. I'm not into that.
Can't get enough of that porno stuff,
well,
Rollie.
So I would love you to just read an actual quote, and I can't stress this enough. This is actually in the Project 2025 mandate for leadership.
Okay, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to say if there's any jokers out there who pull this clip of me saying this and make it seem like I'm saying this off the top of my head, that's not nice of you to do that.
All the jokers know that Nicole loves that red up the middle porno stuff.
Right up the middle is a category of porno stuff.
You just type, you go to your favorite porn search engine, you type the letter R, and it comes up.
Autofills with right up the middle.
Up the middle.
Okay, this is a direct quote from Project 2025. Pornography, manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children, for instance, is not a political Gordian knot inextricably binding up disparate claims about free speech, property rights, sexual liberation, and child welfare. It has no claim to First Amendment protection. Its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women.
Just going to pause you right here. We are talking about pornography. The general catch-all term pornography. And its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women. Please continue.
Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Any crime.
Any crime. Okay. And that's part I actually do agree with, Nicole.
Pornography should be outlawed.
Okay.
The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classified as registered sex offenders. I love going to the library and being like, "Hey, do you have any like anal?"
Yeah, I don't ask them for that, Nicole.
Because you're not into right up the middle porno stuff. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders, and telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered.
Google.com, close it. Text messaging, not on my watch, my friend.
You know those old Greek urns where people are like having orgies and stuff? Smash them.
They smash them all. Yeah, you know shadow puppets? No more shadows, because those can get pretty lewd.
Yeah.
And that is, and I mean this completely, worse than any crime. That's pretty par for the course for Project 2025. It's written by a bunch of different authors. It kind of has tendrils all over the place. Unfortunately, it's not all about different kinds of pornography that they hate and think is worse than any crime. Its tendrils touch all different departments of government. Its basic tenet is to kind of break down government, reduce government wherever it can, and consolidate power in the office of the president. So it's got a lot of policy recommendations, but most of them fit into that sort of bucket.
That bucket being make Donald Trump a little king.
Yes, that's exactly right. Now, Nicole, would you believe that Project 2025 is not extraordinarily concerned with maintaining a livable environment?
Now that is shocking to me.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but here's a clip from a leaked Project 2025 training video.
I think I know what this video is.
Yeah,
okay,
that
great.
I think it's going to give you a better sense of where we're headed.
So I remember when I was in school, in elementary school, we were...
Sorry, not to be all Regina George about it, but these two women are wearing the ugliest fucking outfits I've ever seen in my life. For two women who don't care about the environment, it really looks like they dumpster dived this bullshit from like a dress barn in 1994.
You know what? No comment. That's a really funny thing to say.
But you're a man, and that's misogynistic if you add to it. Yeah, I got it.
I will say, just really quick, this is a leaked Project 2025 training video that was obtained by ProPublica and put on the internet to the delight of me.
I was in school, in elementary school, we were taught that we were all going to be frozen over by an ice age. And of course, this was terrifying.
And if you want more info on that, you can listen to our podcast, Season 1, Episode 5, which is about global cooling.
Yeah, that is one amazing climate denier fallacy. And also, like, bullshit. This lady, when she was in elementary school, her teacher read that one article from Time magazine and taught
gather
students
round,
that.
children.
Yeah.
We're all gonna freeze to death.
Yeah, it's a wonderful little reimagining of her own past to make it fit into this bullshit that she's concocted for herself. But I'm sure that's the last time we're gonna hear some kind of climate denial from Project 2025.
And then in the 80s, it was acid rain. We were all going to die from the acid rain. And then it moved to global warming.
In the 80s, we were all going to die from acid rain.
And we did.
And then something. And why don't we hear about acid rain anymore? Because they fucking fixed it, lady. Because the EPA put a cap on sulfur emissions that power plants were allowed to produce, and that stopped acid rain. So this fucking lady who's like, screw the EPA, what did they ever do for me? All I heard about was acid rain, bop, 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 and then I didn't pay attention to it, and now I'm okay. It's like a bunch of hobbits in Hobbiton that were just like, I kept on hearing about this bad Sauron guy, but he never came and destroyed the Shire, so I guess that was fake.
We were all going to die from the acid rain. And then it moved to global warming, which I think, most of the people watching this tape will remember. That was during the Obama administration.
Yes.
And then science comes along.
Way before the Obama administration.
Yeah, holy shit. That was during the George H.W. Bush administration when he was like, you know what is better than the greenhouse effect? The White House effect. We're going to stop global warming. Yeah. I love this like revisionist history that is so easy to disprove. Mm-hmm. Like in her telling, there should be no way to find a clip of some president before Obama concerned about global warming. But there literally are hundreds of just George H.W. Bush. It just makes me so sad. Anyway, but here is her reasoning for why global warming is fake.
And then science comes along and disproves the global warming theory in large part, and we have one of the most frigid winters ever known.
Sure, science came along and disproved it. We all remember.
Yeah, where did global warming, the theory, come from in the first place? It just got dropped out of the sky by a bunch of novelists?
Uh-huh.
And then science comes along, diligent army of scientists with their little lab coats, and they're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing you know, they're calling it climate change. Now, I always understood that climate change meant seasons. Our climate does change all the time. But of course, that's not what's meant by the left. What do you think about all of about the left's words and definitions in the environment?
It's a great point, Katie.
Not a point. That's a question.
Yeah. That's whatever you were talking about, Katie. Now let's get to the part where we have scripted, obviously, on this teleprompter that I will struggle to read.
They don't stop. Climate change, allegedly, is everywhere. And if the American people elect a conservative president, his administration will have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere.
She has the most concerned eyebrows. I have too much Botox, so I can't do an impression of it, but she's very furrowed the whole time.
I will. Okay, so this is a thing that I've not been able to work into any video or anything, but it is so important that I show this to you, and it's not going to make any fucking sense to any listener here, but I just need you to explain what this woman does right after she says eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere. Watch the way her face resets itself. And I just want you to sort of explain to people what's going on, because I'm obsessed with this 1 second reaction this woman has.
We'll have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere. And according to our intelligence community...
Did you see that?
Yeah, from everywhere. Eyebrows way up.
Shoots up. It's like there's something in her that knows what she's doing is wrong, and she's got to kill it.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? You've seen the movie Get Out?
Yeah.
You know how there's that one section where the guy who's being possessed by the old white guy, he gets like a second to like
he gets the
be
camera
real?
flashes at him and he says,
and get out.
Eponymously, get out.
Yeah. I think there's something in her that's like, run away. This is a bad place to be.
And according to our intelligence community, the number one threat facing our country today is, drumroll,
the devil.
Climate change.
Climate
not
change.
Russia,
I should have gotten
China,
climate.
Climate change. This shows how the federal government is all in on this issue. And climate change activists wield a lot of power.
News to me.
This is an issue to pay attention to, as it has infiltrated every part of the federal government. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you?
No, I don't.
Have they been listening to this podcast?
They have hit several episodes of the podcast. You should go back and listen to the overpopulation episode, the China episode, the global cooling episode. If you want to talk about acid rain, listen to the geoengineering episode. It's wild.
It's like this is what I was worried about when we did this podcast. It's as if they listened to the first section, like the intro, and then immediately skip to the next one.
Got it. Yeah,
that's the problem. All right, so that's dumb. But not something that necessarily would go super viral.
Sure, because it's very boring and those women are the least charismatic people I've ever seen in my life.
Truly your words, not mine. No comment. Now, the Heritage Foundation released the Project 2025 PDF, which was 920 goddamn pages, in April of 2023, so a year and a half ago. Didn't get a huge pop anywhere, but it starts to really gain steam right around the time that Taraji P. Henson name checks it on the BET Awards, June 30th, 2024.
Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
And look it up, people did. And you can see, why don't you go ahead and describe this Google Trends spike we're seeing here?
It's flat. It's really flat. Nobody's looking it up. And it gains a little bit of steam and then sharp peak.
Yeah, it's right around the time that Taraji P. Henson talked about it. It's not so clear that she specifically was the one to break it open. I suspect she did.
As the person who's not on the hook for doing the research this episode, I'm willing to say it was all Taraji P. Henson.
Well, that is your opinion and mine, but those are just opinions. And after it popped off, people read it and they were like, what the fuck? Because it's so much crazy policy. We have articles about it. We have news segments about it, TikTok videos about it, the whole thing. And because it's a 900 fucking page document written to be pretty readable, everyone just rips quotes from it, highlights quotes from it, and talks about specific policy objectives that are pretty batshit insane. And as a couple of internet sort of people,
ride surfboards.
That's right.
Through the
putting
tubes
sunglasses
of the internet.
On, avoiding the coral reefs of books. It's clear that this is the kind of thing that does pop off when like conservative groups release these weird policy documents that are like, take away their porno because it talks about transgender woke ideology. And it's like, yeah, this is dumb and stuff that people should make content about, especially if there's a chance that this could become reality, which there very much is, because this is like a conservative playbook. And if a conservative president launches his way into office, I'm not saying who it might be, but it's Donut Trump. Yeah, if a conservative president gets into office, these policies could become, the law of the land. Yeah. Which is worrisome. And it sort of feels like it's a leak. Those training videos, those were leaked, right? Those are like behind the scenes training videos for people who wanted to join the Project 2025 sort of dossier. But the Project 2025 document, that they put that on their website.
That's just been out.
Yeah, it's like project2025.org. You can just get it there.
It's good that it's tax exempt.
Yeah, we got to get that. We got to camp on project2025.com and like write some crazy. Honestly, I could not write a crazier thing.
Producer Ben just turned his computer around. Project2025.com does exist and it is hosted on GeoCities.
Is it pro or con?
I truly can't tell. It says get ready to learn the truth, so I imagine it's against.
That's
Project
what I would
2025.
think, but they would say shit like that.
But the aesthetics of the website say conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. To me, the aesthetics of that website say you're about to get a virus if you poke around here for more than 5 minutes. Why don't you go navigate to somewhere safer, like some right up the middle porno stuff? And so people are making videos about this and they're ripping quotes. And it turns out Project 2025, very unpopular.
Yeah.
People don't like what it has to say.
People generally don't like arresting librarians for some trumped up porn charge.
Yeah, like, oh, hey, this book has the word transgender in it and not in a pejorative way. You're getting the paddy wagon Selma. Oh, that's fun. Getting the paddy wagon Selma.
Oh, Patty and Selma. That's great.
That's where my brain is dying. All right. Anyway, Project 2025 turns out to be very unpopular. Let me play a clip from the Wall Street Journal to elucidate that.
The Wall Street Journal polled on Project 2025 in August and asked, do voters have a favorable or unfavorable view of it? And we had two really remarkable findings in that poll. The first is people knew about it. More than 2/3 of people felt that they knew enough about Project 2025 to answer our question. The second thing we found is that it is overwhelmingly unpopular.
In the poll, 57% of voters had a negative opinion of the agenda, including 53% who said their opinion was very negative.
Even Republicans have a negative view of Project 2025 if they're people who feel like they know enough about it to have an opinion one way or another.
And when it came to undecided or persuadable voters,
about half of up-for-grabs voters who could be the ones who decide this election had a negative view of Project 2025, and only 4% had a positive view. So among the people who might decide this election, Project 2025 is a liability.
All right, so this is an unpopular policy, which is kind of weird because it sort of shouldn't be a known quantity in the public sphere.
It is as outwardly evil as it is. It is a 900-page policy document.
Yeah.
It's not like those are blowing up the internet every week.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that this was able to catch on, but you write enough crazy shit in a document that might get adopted by the president.
Sure.
And people get worried. And speaking of the president, he was noticing that Project 2025, a document written specifically for him, was getting really unpopular. And so the GOP goes into absolute crisis management mode. They cannot be dragged down by this deeply unpopular list of all of the policies that they like. So the Heritage Foundation director of Project 2025, Paul Dans, he falls on his sword. He resigns as director for the crime of doing his job too good and publicizing a document that he wholeheartedly believes in a little too well.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump also is trying to gain a little distance from this. And so he makes some social truths. And I'd like you to truth them, please.
All right. This is a truth from July 5th, 2024. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying. And some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them.
Yeah, so that's a little obviously disingenuous, but let's go ahead and truth one more truth from Truth Social.
So this was truthed 6 days later on July 11th, 2024. And the truths. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have not seen it, have no idea who's in charge of it, and unlike our very well-received Republican platform, had nothing to do with it. The radical left, Democrats, are having a field day, however, trying to hook me into whatever policies are stated or said. It's pure disinformation on their part. By now, after all these years, everyone knows where I stand on everything! DJT. He signed that one. He doesn't sign... It's like my dad signs every text message, love dad, when he sends it to me. You know, he's getting more personal. My dearest Martha, the radical left has framed me.
P.S. Send socks.
And this post has 26.5 thousand likes and 7.8 thousand retruths.
First of all, those are not super hot numbers. And then also, I get that the retruths, you're truthing and you're retruthing, but you didn't do something for like. You didn't change the word like.
Truth. What's a
true dat? True dats.
Sure. A bunch of true dats and retruths.
Yeah. Facts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Retruth. Fact.
We got to move on. Keep going.
Hey there, a little inside baseball. We record this very podcast at the Climate Town office. And if you're not familiar with Climate Town, it's a YouTube series we make for as cheaply as possible. And that means schlepping our camera equipment all over New York City.
Yes, our backpacks are full, and the gear we reach for every time is peak design.
That voice you just heard is Ben Boult, the executive producer of this podcast and of Climate Town.
That's right, Rollie.
I mean, this is an ad, but we are genuinely loaded with peak design gear, from backpacks to sling bags to camera accessories. And by we, I usually just mean Ben. Ben literally has like 7 things from Peak Design on during any given shoot.
Yeah, Rollie. I mean, they make good stuff. My freaking phone case from Peak Design. My phone charger on my desk. That's Peak Design too. My out front bike mount that I can put my phone on. Guess what? Peak Design. You know that little tripod we use on Climate Town shoots?
The little travel tripod?
The little travel tripod. They got organizers. They got straps, clips, duffel bags, everyday bags.
And they're not fucking around. Peak Design gear is guaranteed for life, whether you buy it firsthand or 10th hand.
And they can make that kind of commitment and not go broke because they build stuff to last.
As my father would say, it's built like a brick shithouse. And now I'm hearing it out loud, that term is a little dated.
Peak Design is a certified fair trade B Corp that prides itself on recyclable materials, and it lobbies lawmakers in D.C. for environmental legislation. They're also the group who nominated Climate-Town to be an environmental partner with 1% for the planet. So double thank you. And they also have been a podcast supporter of ours from day one. And also, they just make really good stuff.
So go to peakdesign.com/playbook. That's PEAK design.com/playbook for 20% off some of our favorite products and a picture of Ben on set dripping with Peak Design gear.
I'm literally going to try to put as many pieces of Peak Design gear as I possibly can into one picture.
I'm glad we just got health insurance because Ben's back is going to be demoed.
But not because the Peak Design stuff is heavy. The other shit that we put inside
in bulk, it's heavy.
If you
stack enough Peak Design stuff.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying it's heavy gear.
They got a
good
shoulder
gear.
strap. It really takes the weight off your shoulder.
It's going to crush you to death.
If that's how I got to go, sayonara.
Hey, Nicole.
What's up, Rollie?
I just wanted to remind you to stock up on Patriot Powder for your underground bunker. Ah, yes, good old Patriot Powder has 10,000 grams of fiber in every serving to ward off all that communism.
Rollie, I gotta stop you right there because that sounds like a fake ad for an awful product to highlight the fact that you can listen to this podcast ad-free over on our Patreon page.
Oh, you're talking about our The Climate Denier's Playbook Patreon page with ad-free episodes and that's it?
That's not even close to it.
Huh?
Our Patreon page also has exclusive Patreon-only bonus episodes, as well as perks like being able to vote on future topics and the ability to talk directly to the Climate Denier's Playbook team.
Now, maybe I just ate too many servings of Patriot Powder, but isn't this podcast completely free to produce and requires no additional team members besides me and Rollie?
You are Rollie. How much Patriot Powder did you eat?
Bonus episodes?
Why don't you take 5 and I'll close this one out?
Good, because it just got really blue in here.
Joining the Patreon page keeps the show independent, and it helps us pay the people who work on this podcast. We've got a whole team of researchers and producers, which is good because if one person tried to read through all of this climate denial propaganda on their own, I think their face would melt off like in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, hey, melted face syndrome is actually also a side effect of Patriot Powder, now with extra goo.
So join the Patreon page for fun, exclusive perks, and a community of our other generous, cool patrons who like the kind of content we're producing over here and want to see more of it in the world.
Now, I may be temporarily powder blind, but if I ever regain my sight and see one of you Patreon supporters out on the street, I'm going to give you a big hug, or handshake, or fist bump, or just leave you the hell alone, depending on your personal preference.
Patreon.com/Denier's Playbook.
My
Link in the
teeth
description.
are vibrating.
God damn it, Rollie.
Me, Rollie? So this is Trump really trying to get out in front of this thing. I have nothing to do with Project 2025. I don't know who made it. I don't know who's behind it. I don't know who wrote it. And I'll never read it. And the stuff that I
do
did
believe
read,
he will never read it.
Yeah, that's true. That is the one little kernel of truth in all this.
Yeah, that's the one retruth that we can truth.
Fact.
Now, Rollie, I worry that I'm jumping ahead in your outline here, but wasn't Project 2025 written by former Trump staffers?
I don't think so. Let me check my outline here. Oh my, yes. Big time, yes. Big all caps, yes. Rollie Williams signed. RW. Yeah, so, I mean, the note behind your note is, of course, so if Trump has nothing to do with this, what are we doing? Why are we doing? Why are we even talking about this thing? Like, Trump's not involved. Why are we even making a podcast about this? Because Trump is lying, and he knows all about Project 2025, and he fucking loves the creators of Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation. There's a little bit of sleight of hand that's going on when Trump is like, oh, I don't know what Project 2025 is, because Project 2025 is just a project within the Heritage Foundation. It's like an album from a band, or it's like somebody who is the biggest fan of The Lord of the Rings, who's like, oh, I love the Fellowship of the Rings, and I love the Two Towers. I have no idea what the Return of the King is. I don't know any of the characters that are in it. I don't know what realm it takes place in.
Sure.
I don't know who anyone might be or where the plot might be going. What even is a king? Return of the King? I don't even know those guys. So the Heritage Foundation is the ringleader of this. There are a bunch of other conservative groups like we talked about that were part of the production of the Project 2025 handbook, but the Heritage Foundation is front and center. They created Project 2025. They brought together a bunch of other conservative groups to help them out, but that is very much their project. Now, the Heritage Foundation has been doing mandate for leadership documents since 1981. So the Heritage Foundation got super close to Ronald Reagan, and he was the first conservative president to get a copy of the mandate for leadership.
Shocker.
Now, Nicole, you've walked down a street in New York. People are always trying to hand you shit. You don't always read the whole thing.
I would argue I rarely ever accept it.
Wow, nice job. So
It's that Mitch Hedberg joke about being like, here, you throw this out.
Yeah. And so one could argue like, oh, maybe they gave it to Reagan and Reagan was like, yeah, thanks a lot. And then fucking chucked it in the trash can, not the recycle bin. But go ahead and read this quote from a New York Times article.
This is from a 2018 article called How One Conservative Think Tank is Stalking Trump's Government. Reagan asked that the 1,093-page document be distributed at his first cabinet meeting. Imagine going to your first meeting at a job as an aide and you're handed a 1,093-page document.
I would think that's your welcome to the big leagues moment. Oh, no, people are reading this.
Reagan asked that the 1,093-page document be distributed at his first cabinet meeting. Reagan also turned to Heritage and Fulner to help staff and organize his administration. An enduring, mutually beneficial friendship was born.
And the rest is history. All right, so according to the book The Power of Ideas that was written by a fucking Heritage Foundation member, Lee Edwards, by the end of Reagan's first term, he had either implemented or initiated 60% of the more than 2,000 different Heritage Foundation proposals.
Wow.
So in 4 years, Reagan had digested, absorbed, and was starting to promote the Heritage Foundation policies to the extent that like more than half of them he had already integrated into what he was trying to get accomplished.
That has got to be the best that like freely distributed literature has ever worked.
Yeah, you don't ever hand out flyers to a comedy show and then sell it
60% of people show up. That would be crazy.
That'd be insane. Imagine if flyering was that effective. People, you wouldn't be able to walk down the fucking street because you'd be so busy going to people's flyer events. Now, the history of the Heritage Foundation is very interesting and storied. They have a huge amount of success with Reagan, and they're like, holy shit, we're going to be kings over here. And then they kind of fall out of favor with the Bush administrations. Remember when that father and son duo were president? That was pretty cool.
Do you know why they fell out of favor with the Bush administration? Does it matter?
They're a little more establishment forward. So Ronald Reagan is coming in, and he's not like a Washington insider, so he doesn't have his guys.
He's a Hollywood insider.
Who are your guys, Nicole? Reagan didn't have a lot of guys, and so the Heritage Foundation was able to be like, hey, kid, stick with me.
We'll be your guys.
Right. And it wasn't quite as nefarious because Reagan was like, please, like, I need guys, Jesus Christ. And so that sort of a beautiful outsidery dipshit Heritage Foundation relationship was born.
Got it.
Which didn't quite happen as much with the Bush administrations because they're like
they had their own evil guys.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're good, thank you. We know exactly how we're gonna fuck over poor people. Thank you very much. The Heritage Foundation had kind of lost their way. They weren't even publishing the mandates for leadership.
Guys, I'm really worried about the Heritage Foundation. They're not even publishing mandates anymore.
Come on, you guys.
They used to love publishing mandates.
Take the rights away from disadvantaged people just to see how it feels. So in 2004, they published a mandate for leadership, but it was really small. And then in 2008, they didn't publish at all. 2012, they didn't publish one. And then they're like, let's get our groove back. With this.
I was just going to say how the Heritage Foundation got their groove back. I was waiting for you to say the next one so that I could do that riff.
It's in the way that you use it. Yeah. Cut to montage of the Heritage Foundation getting bangs. And like we spin it around in a chair and we're like, And then it's like wearing a Nazi outfit. We're like,
and a big thumbs up.
This is a movie we need to make. And the meet cute that they had was with one Donald J. Trump.
Where he was dropping a donut and they dropped a mandate and then their hands touched.
Exactly. So Trump comes in and he's kind of a Washington outsider. He doesn't have as established of a team. He's sort of got a loose set of policy ideas. He's trying to make America great. He's trying to build that wall and make Mexico, a foreign government, pay for his wall, which he totally does, and it's perfect. It works out really nice. And he's also trying to make sure we bring back all the coal jobs.
We love coal.
We love coal.
We love coal. Clean coal.
Beautiful coal.
Make America Great Again was Reaganism first, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Allegedly, We thought of it at the same time. It was my idea too. Yeah, but he doesn't have like, you know, administrations full of guys
Right.
who can like.
And then the Heritage Foundation was like, we're guys.
Hey,
we could do it.
That's right. I mean, like, so Trump's guys are the guys that he made, his sons, the lady that he made, his daughter, the lady that he made's husband. And
who was grown in a tube.
Yeah. But the tube wasn't big enough. They didn't change the tube soon enough. He just grew up. And the only contestant from The Apprentice that you know the name of. Who, of course, is? Omarosa. Those were his guys.
And then the phlegm from the Mucinex commercials.
That's right, yeah. And
we all know is Steve Bannon.
Well, the problem is he got Mucinex and Steve Bannon had to move out.
Yes, yeah.
So he didn't really have that well-established team, scraping the bottom of the barrel, which makes him the perfect guy for the Heritage Foundation. And basically, we see the same kind of thing where the Heritage Foundation bets really big on this Washington outsider, wins really big, and it kind of pays off for both Trump and the Heritage Foundation because they each have something the other one wants.
They're symbiotic organisms.
It's a double parasitic relationship that they have with each other. So in 2015, 2016, the Heritage Foundation creates this giant list of conservative people who they would like to recommend that Trump hire for various positions in his administration. Trump got a list of Supreme Court justice nominees from the Heritage Foundation, and all fucking 3 Supreme Court justices that Trump confirms were all backed by the Heritage Foundation, which is so
good.
Awesome
I think
that
it's
they were
cool.
able to
it's
overturn
good and
Roe
cool,
v.
and
Wade.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Do you remember when they were asked in their confirmation hearings, like, hey, are you going to try to overturn Roe v. Wade?
Me? Me? Overturn Roe v. Wade? That's settled law.
I'm so mad that you'd even ask me that, because that's settled law, and I wouldn't fucking touch that with a 10-foot pole, brother. And then the moment it's like, hey, should we Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty fucked up and pretty heritage enabled. Trump adopts like a ton of the Heritage Foundation policy recommendations in his term, which includes leaving the Paris Climate Accords, repealing net neutrality, and reinstating this old Reagan-era policy that denied any kind of federal funding if you were an NGO that was performing or promoting the concept of abortions in other countries as a method of family planning. But there is no better encapsulation of the Heritage Foundation-Trump relationship than this. After Trump's first year, the Heritage Foundation makes a little report that's called the Blueprint for Impact, where they celebrate Trump embracing 64% of the Heritage Foundation agenda. If you'll recall, they were pumped about Reagan doing 60%.
We got a new record, baby.
A new record.
Call Guinness.
In the first year. Now, that's not to say that like any of this got passed, but it's Trump endorsing stuff, getting started on stuff, completing stuff, that kind of thing.
All cool stuff. All cool stuff that we like.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So cool that they printed it up in a little fucking booklet.
Okay.
They make a booklet celebrating how much they're having a great relationship with Trump. Thomas Binion, the Heritage Foundation's director of congressional and executive branch relations, goes on to Fox and Friends and brags about the booklet and their accomplishments. And Trump apparently watches it live on Fox and Friends and then incorrectly tweets this out.
This was 2018, so it's a tweet. At Real Donald Trump, February 28th, 2018. The Heritage Foundation has just stated that 64% of the Trump agenda is already done faster than even Ronald Reagan. We're blown away, says Thomas Binion of Heritage. President Trump is very active, very conservative, and very effective. Huge volume and spectrum of issues.
Yeah.
It's not that 64% of the Trump agenda has been completed. It's that Trump has endorsed 64% of the Heritage Foundation's agenda.
Yeah, wrong. It's wrong. But it's a really funny thing to go back and see like, oh, this program aired here and Trump tweeted this out here.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so he was watching it while in a Diet Coke fueled fugue state, got it wrong, tweeted it out. And that's how laws get made in this country, which is pretty super cool. It's also either just him misunderstanding the difference between his agenda and the Heritage Foundation's agenda, or he just has the same agenda as the Heritage Foundation.
They're the same picture. Yeah.
But that was his first term. Okay, Nicole, that was all the way back in 2018. That was when he was active on Twitter the first time. Okay. Things are different now.
He's on Truth Social now.
That's right. He's truthing up a storm, and he might not be that close to the Heritage Foundation anymore, right?
You grow apart from your friends as you get older,
I don't even know those guys. That could be what he meant.
Could be.
Because he knew them in 2018. Probably doesn't know them anymore. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up a clip of the Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts, the same guy who said, I don't know if you remember this, "We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
A little freaky deaky. So here's Kevin Roberts praising Trump at the Heritage Foundation's annual leadership conference in 2022.
In 1989, when Ronald Reagan's presidency came to an end, I thought, as I was coming of age as a young conservative, having recently discovered the Heritage Foundation as a teenager, that I would never again in my life as an American have another president as good as Reagan. And I was wrong. Praise God. We had a president in Donald Trump who fought for us, regardless of where we were from. For people like me growing up in a working class, blue-collar family in Louisiana, even though he obviously was not from Louisiana, my family would say, extended family would say, many of them lifelong Democrats until his presidency, that he was a man for them. And I think that he is a man for our age.
Okay, so that's 2022. Now they still love Trump, obviously.
Sometimes you don't love somebody back.
That's right, Nicole.
And that's hard.
And that's kind of what we're seeing with these tweets or truths from Trump. I don't love those guys back, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of like, they're like a brother to me.
Right.
You know?
I'm busy on Sunday. That clip we just saw was Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, introducing the keynote speaker at the Heritage Foundation's annual leadership conference in 2022, former President Donald J. Trump.
Oh.
So let's...
Now, see, that's weird, because if I was falling out of love with somebody, I probably wouldn't speak as their keynote speaker at their conference.
That's right. And if you did speak as the keynote speaker at their conference, you probably wouldn't not know who they are in any way. But you know, maybe they just booked you and you just wanted the paycheck.
Sure.
Maybe you don't really know much about him. This might just be like completely unrelated.
Let's just hear him out. Let's hear what he has to say.
Let's hear him out.
Yeah.
No one ever hears him out anymore. Let's hear him out.
Already we have shown the power of our winning formula, working closely with many of the great people at Heritage over the 4 incredible years that we've worked with you a lot. And we were just discussing it with Kevin.
We've worked with you a lot.
And they've been incredible years.
Yeah. This is the thing you would write for the bad guy to say if you were trying to show that the bad guy really had worked with him a lot. And then you get the note back like, this is too obvious.
Yeah, please show, don't tell.
Yeah.
They're going to work on some other things that are going to be very exciting, I think, Kevin. I think maybe the most exciting of all.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught that, but he is forward-thinking in this clip to his next presidential term.
They're planning their future together.
Yeah.
They're like, maybe we should get a dog.
We've worked together a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. I know you guys. I know what you guys are about.
And I'm going to work with you in the future.
That's right.
As well.
With the help of many people in this room, we saved our country once, and together we swear that we will save our country again. Because our country is going to hell. The critical job of institutions such as Heritage is to lay the groundwork, and Heritage does
those dentures are sliding
such
around.
An incredible job at that. And I'm telling you, with Kevin and the staff, and I met so many of them now, I took pictures with among the most handsome, beautiful people I've ever seen.
I don't know those guys.
And they're beautiful.
I like that picture. If you could lose that picture, please, would you, Kevin? But this is a great, no, he says I won't do that. But this is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Okay, so that's not great.
Yeah.
It's pretty damning.
They're putting together plans for my administration that are going to give me a colossal mandate.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have such a colossal mandate.
In what year, Mr. Trump?
Yeah, that's just Project 2025. Yeah. That's just the mandate for leadership that he's already gotten once. Yeah. He got the last one. He did the last one. He's like, hey, can't wait for the next one. Really psyched about it.
Trying to beat his own record, trying to beat that 64%.
Yeah. Now, Nicole, we could spend another 2 hours detailing the links that Trump has to Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation. We could play a dozen more clips. I could talk about the 140 former Trump administration officials who helped write Project 2025.
I mean, that's not that many.
We could go over all the undisputed overlaps between Project 2025 policy proposals and the Trump campaign's policy proposals. We could even, and I'm not going to do this, but we could even talk about Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, writing the foreword to Kevin Roberts' upcoming book, Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America.
Well, maybe that is a mystery novel.
A mystery novel that includes this gem. The Heritage Foundation isn't some random outpost on Capitol Hill. It is and has been the most influential engine of ideas for Republicans from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump. Close quote.
That's a clue.
It is a clue, but not for a fictional mystery novel. We don't have time to totally get into it, but we do have just a little bit of time for me to show you a clip from a hidden camera recording. You know how much I love hidden camera recordings, Nicole. This is of Project 2025 co-author and Trump's former director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vogt.
I expect you to hear 10 more times from the rally, the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
This is framed incredibly for a hidden camera. Was the camera hidden inside another camera that was pointed directly at him? Because it is cinematic.
Yeah, this is the Center for Climate Reporting. Those guys do incredible work. They rigged up this whole hotel room with different cameras, and I guess one of them has a fucking Iron Man style camera built into his chest that powers his heart, because this framing is awesome.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I expect you to hear 10 more times from the rally, the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
Yeah. And you're not worried about that?
No, I'm not worried about it. And so I see what he's doing is just very, very conscious distancing himself from a brand. He's very supportive of what we do.
So that's him basically saying, like, yeah, Trump's out there saying he has nothing to do with 2025 because the left are making a boogeyman out of our evil plans, but he's on our side.
You can't freaking say the things that we wrote. That's cheating. And so obviously Trump knows these guys. These guys know Trump. They know that it's unpopular, so they know he's got to distance himself, but they're not worried. They're like, they're protecting a brand. When he gets elected, we walk in and we do Project 2025. Mm-hmm. But in case there's any doubt remaining in your mind that he will totally use this playbook that they made specially just for him if he gets elected, let's listen to one last clip from that speech he gave to the Heritage Foundation in 2022.
We need an organization like yours working on the next generation of policies for a post-Biden, post-COVID world. And if I didn't have confidence in your new leadership and all of the people that I've met and so many that I knew of but didn't know, I wouldn't be here tonight. I'd be sitting home enjoying myself. Now I'm working my ass off and enjoying myself. But I want to congratulate, Madam Chairman, I want to congratulate you and Kevin on everything that you're doing to encourage new thinking, embrace new directions, and keep heritage at the vanguard of the conservative movement. And the conservative movement is making tremendous strides.
Okay, well, maybe
that's a clue also.
Yeah, maybe that was somehow taken out of context. The context wasn't him speaking to the Heritage Foundation, was it?
It was.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't help things then.
Yeah, if I didn't have confidence in the policies you guys are writing for me, I wouldn't be here. And I'm not here. I'm a hologram. All right, so let's talk about what enacting Project 2025 would actually mean for the climate.
Great.
And I was trying to think of a nice way to transition out of it's definitely Trump. And I realized that if I just let that previous clip play, Trump does the perfect transition for me.
Incredible.
So let's just go straight to that.
I want to congratulate you and Kevin on everything that you're doing to encourage new thinking, embrace new directions, and keep heritage at the vanguard of the conservative movement. And the conservative movement is making tremendous strides, and everyone knows it. And every mistake they make is one thing good. They realize that we got it right. One of the most urgent tasks, not only for our movement, but for our country, is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax.
Oh, that's the first thing. That's
thing.
the very first thing he says.
The ocean is rising. It's rising. It's coming. It's within 300 years, we're going to gain 1/100th of an inch in the ocean and have a little more beachfront property. It's going to be a terrible thing.
Ooh, boy, people in Asheville are loving their beachfront property.
God. Also, like, let's just run that thought experiment really quick. If oceans rise, that's less beachfront property.
Yeah. Well,
imagine a globe. Your hands are in a basketball, and then you move your hands up on the basketball.
Right.
They don't get wider.
Right.
That's less beachfront property.
I think if the ocean is in your house, then technically your whole house is beachfront property.
Sweetheart, I don't think we should buy this house. I know they said it's beachfront property, but it's very wet in here.
No, it's a hoax. The whole thing is it's so crazy. And just in a simple way, China has a very dirty country.
Check out our episode about China.
I love how he's just like, it's a hoax. The whole thing's a hoax. China's a very dirty country.
Let's not forget foreigners are filthy.
I'm getting a little bit too into the climate change hoax, and I forgot to mention some other easy targets that I hate. All right, so thank you, Donald Trump, for transitioning us into the actual climate implications of Project 2025, a thing he knows nothing about, doesn't know who's behind it,
right,
and doesn't have confidence in the people, including the people he'd only heard of and has just met now.
And has pictures with now. Yeah,
that's
great.
Right. All right, so there's been a lot of amazing pieces written about various climate implications of Project 2025, but the nice thing about publishing a playbook is that I can download it and I can read it. And I can read as much of it as I want. And it sucked. It was a real pain in the ass, but I read, I think, like 100 pages of the sections that I thought were most relevant. And I looked around the office at one point, and everyone in the office, all 4 people in the office, had the fucking Project 2025 PDF open and were like pouring through different sections, highlighting. And I was just
poor
like,
office.
I know. It was like, this has ruined our month.
Got to take the staff to Coney Island at the end of the month. Just be like, I'm sorry, guys.
Again, yeah. And it has the opportunity to ruin the months of many Americans for many years. So Project 2025 is broken down into about 30 sections, and each section focuses on a specific department or agency that the Heritage Foundation would really like to overhaul or just eliminate completely.
Sure.
As much as I wish there was just one climate section, climate's a multi-tiered issue. It's all over the fucking document in lots of different ways. So I wanted to focus in more specifically on the Environmental Protection Agency section. And we're going to talk about the other sections in a little bit, but let's just go straight into the EPA section. So Chapter 13 is written by a woman named Mandy Gunasakara.
Okay.
She is the former EPA Chief of Staff under President Trump.
Great.
If you remember that famous clip from the Senate Environmental Committee Chairman James Inhofe, where he throws that snowball on the floor of Congress to say that there's no such thing as global warming.
Yeah, because he has a snowball.
Yeah. And he's like, how could it be global warming? It's cold outside.
Debunked!
And Amy Westervelt was like going through this chapter and realized that the woman who hands him the snowball is Mandy Gunasakara.
Great.
So
you love to see a woman's career progression, you know?
Yeah. It's like watching a movie and one of the extras is Johnny Depp or something. And you're like, what the fuck? But she just wrote a book. It just came out like a couple of days ago that some people could interpret as her bid to be the secretary of the EPA if Trump wins. And I just want you to read the title of this book.
Please let it be something like, I would like to be the secretary of the EPA under Donald J. Trump.
That is the subtext, I think.
Okay.
But here's the title of the book. Just read it out loud.
I don't want to.
Come on.
Why is it the meme font? Why is it an impact?
The people want to hear what the title of this book is.
The title of this book is Y'all Fired.
The Southern version of Donald Trump's famous apprentice catchphrase, "You fired."
Y'all fired.
Y'all fired. And the subtitle is
A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. And the cover looks like a senior photo of a girl who like is in band but wants people to know she also likes rock and roll music.
She's in band and is also sexually active.
And she's standing at an old gas station that clearly is not operating anymore, just sort of an old like post-apocalyptic gas station, all rusted out. And it says Mandy M. Gunasakara, former chief of staff of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, parentheses EPA.
And I guess it's...
And I can't emphasize enough, this looks like a meme.
Yeah.
It is impact font.
And look at the way fired is spelled.
So it's spelled fired, but instead of an I, it's her white cowboy boots.
Yeah. Pretty sweaty.
And the notes next to it in Rollie's outline just said, Nicole, read, in all caps, because I think on some level he knew I was going to resist it.
Yeah. I just needed you to read it. Just because it's... I think I could have...
It's like when you watch the video in The Ring, and the only way for it not to kill you is to make somebody else watch it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to buy you that book so you can read it. All right, so she writes the EPA chapter, and if I had to boil it down to one sentence, it would be, let's either cut or downsize everything the EPA does so it doesn't affect business interests or try to address climate change in any way.
Okay.
More specifically, it's like 40 or 50 pages, but it's a big bullet point. It reads kind of like a BuzzFeed listicle of like 10 things I would do.
This is what she wrote in Project 2025. This is not Y'all Fired.
That's right.
Okay.
I have not read a copy of Y'all Fired
yet.
She advocates for a day one executive order. Trump comes in, and on day one, he pause and reviews, a.k.a. cuts all of the major Biden EPA rules and guidance, which includes cutting as much of the Inflation Reduction Act as they possibly can. She's advocating for cutting any and all climate-focused plans. Anytime there's a climate czar, cut them. Anytime there's a climate plan, cut it. Eliminate the standalone Office of Environmental Justice. Just cut it. Preventing government grants from going to programs they could consider political, a.k.a. climate change related. So it's like review all the places we give grants to. If you don't like the politics behind the organization, stop giving them grants. This is a direct quote. Resetting science advisory boards to expand opportunities for a diversity of scientific viewpoints, free of potential conflicts of interest. So some of these terms...
Resetting.
Yeah, that's
Have
the
you
thing.
tried turning the EPA off and on again?
That's really, really funny, Nicole.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of these terms that we are going to read are like pause and review. And that's just like lawyer speak for like, I think, figure out a way to cut it and then cut it. Resetting is lawyer speak, I think, for fire everybody on the current science advisory board and replace them with people that will do the thing you want them to do. I like that it's like a diversity of scientific viewpoints free of potential conflicts of interest. But the conflict of interest would be the interest of the president. So if anyone has a conflict of interest with what the president wants, they're gone.
Yeah, that's just not a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is like the head of the EPA also owns a toxic waste factory.
Yeah, a factory.
Yeah.
They're just making toxic waste.
It's a bad business. I don't know how they stay in business.
Usually
it's not like I'm in a conflict with the president. That's just a disagreement.
Yeah, that is, in this case, that's a conflict of interest, and y'all fired. And I'm so sorry. Here's another direct quote. Revise guidance documents that control regulations such as the social cost of carbon. Remember, revise, in this case,
Get rid of.
Get rid of the social cost of carbon, that thing that we use.
Why didn't we get rid of the social cost of carbon before? We could have solved all our problems.
If we just get rid of all of the times we reference climate change, we don't have to fucking worry about it. So freaking take a load off, jump on that surfboard, and surf
Cruise
on
the
over
internet.
to the internet for some right down the middle porno stuff, brother. It goes on to talk about revising guidance for causality of health effects, low-dose risk estimation, and employment loss analysis. These are all ways to like, hey, what if we didn't consider what climate change will do to the economy and people? Here's another one that sounds kind of innocuous. Establish a system with an appropriate deadline to update the 2009 endangerment finding.
Is that like endangered species?
No, that is the Massachusetts versus EPA finding that carbon dioxide is bad if we pump it into the atmosphere.
Okay.
And the way they phrase it is like, establish a system with an appropriate deadline to update that decision.
Uh-huh.
Now, the decision was that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is bad.
Yeah.
And an update to that system would be,
It's not that bad.
Yeah, you just let it go in there. Hey,
Plants
we breathe
eat
it out. Plants love it. This is a nice backdoor into more episodes of the Climate Deniers
Every future
Playbook.
episode of the Climate Deniers Playbook is just me trying to get you to listen to the old episodes of the Climate Deniers Playbook.
At some point, we could do that. It's called syndication.
Ooh, I like that.
Another piece of policy that they are constantly advocating for is a rollback of all clean energy transition goals, incentives, grants, and research, as well as just a ton of other very negative, deleterious environmental policies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's from the EPA section from Mandy Gunasekara, author of Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. And don't be surprised if in fucking horrible Timelineville we got a Trump president if you see a Mandy Gunasekara EPA administrator, which is a huge bummer. Now, we're going to run through kind of some highlights from the rest of Project 2025, but I want you to note the overall tone here about just breaking government, destroying government, eliminating parts of government, which is kind of the overall push of Project 2025, and it makes sense as an easy thing to do. It's always easier to just like fuck something up than it is to do it right and consistently, as we both know from the difference between how hard it is to produce an improv show and a sketch comedy show.
So basically, they get to like fuck up the government and make it super bad and inefficient. And then they get to be like, well, the government can't fucking do anything. So we better break it even more. Let's just disassemble it. And it's like, it's your fault.
I can't ride my bike anywhere because my bicycle doesn't fucking work because I slashed my tires out of spite for my bicycle not working. So that was the EPA chapter. But of course, there is almost 30 other chapters. In the Department of Energy section, we get a couple of calls to eliminate offices that are focused on clean energy development, energy efficiency, renewable energy deployment, that kind of thing.
Haven't we deployed enough renewable energy?
We also have the call to eliminate political and climate change interference in Department of Energy approvals of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, exports. Do you remember a certain punishingly long Climate Town video about that in the past? They also call for shutting down the Loan Program Office, which is in charge of distributing hundreds of billions of dollars that the federal government currently has budgeted for green projects via the Inflation Reduction Act and other similar laws. For the Transportation Department, they want to divert funds away from public transportation and toward more car-centric infrastructure.
I've always said car-centric infrastructure doesn't get enough funding.
You know, if we just had one more lane,
I think one more lane would do
we
it.
could fix all this fucking traffic.
Yeah.
The Department of Education, they want to disband the Department of Education.
Sure.
Kind of.
School's out forever, baby.
That should have been the shortest chapter, but it is many, many pages. They want to like basically send it back to state and local governments and like let private enterprise.
Sure. They want everybody to be homeschooled and unable to read.
Not unable to read, but not good at reading.
Okay.
They want everybody to read at the level that those two women were reading the teleprompter in the ProPublica leaked video of the Project 2025 training videos.
They want everybody to be able to read Y'all Fired.
Look.
Which I'm assuming is mostly pictures.
I'll have you know, Y'all Fired is an incredibly beautifully written tome by Mandy Gunasekara, that new EPA administrator. All right, in the section about the Department of Interior, they are advocating for more frequent lease sales for fossil fuel production on federal land. They're looking to leave the Paris Climate Accord again. Mm-hmm. By the way, the first time we left the Paris Climate Accord, do you know who was the mastermind behind leaving it?
Not Donald Trump.
Sort of a Southern Belle Donald Trump.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Mandy Gunasekara.
That's right. And this is a personal favorite of mine. They want to dismantle the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and completely commercialize the Weather Service. Which is like, hey, you know how you need to know what the weather is going to be?
Yeah.
$5. $5, please.
I know that this thing is full of fucking evil, onerous shit, but truly, the one that gave me the most visceral reaction is the idea that to get a weather report, I have to sign up for one more fucking streaming service.
Yeah.
Everything is a subscription. I don't no. I can't pay another $5 a month for something.
And that's the thing. It's like Project 2025 looks at the government like This is a private business, and everything that you do has to make money, or else it's not worth doing, which deeply misunderstands the point of government, which is to help people live a good and fruitful life. And part of that is to provide services. Like, do you think it's really cost effective to be able to get a letter to everybody in the United States, regardless of where they live, for 30, 40, 50, 60 cents? No. But it is extremely helpful for the citizens of America to be able to send letters to each other. That is a service that the government provides. Knowing what the weather is for free is a service that the government provides. And by the way, AccuWeather, a private company, uses the fucking government satellite data. They already use that data to make money. Like, the government is providing a service that also allows private enterprise to provide a different, maybe more graphically integrated service. And that fucking works. And the idea that we're going to cut NOAA, which, by the way, is the place that's keeping track of all the information for climate change. It's like, hey, what was the weather trend in Middle America from the 70s until now?
Well, now if you want to know, you got to sign up for NOAA Plus.
And we won't even fucking tell you, because that information is not useful for the weather of the week. And so that part of the government, that they are advocating for scrapping it. It's like, we have a real problem worldwide, and we need to have really good data to know how to fix that problem and know where to target our policy. And Project 2025 is advocating for just fucking deleting that information.
Ooh.
And this is not like a theoretical, in the future, climate change might be a problem and we'll deal with it as it comes up. There are currently 2 hurricanes that are hitting the East Coast, and it's causing a lot of problems. And the policies that are being advocated in Project 2025 would make this situation way worse. It would remove information. It would prevent NOAA from doing more predictions. And this very real problem that climate change is exacerbating is going to become worse if policies like 2025 are put into place, because not only are the physical problems worse, but the lack of information will make them harder to respond to.
Right.
That's a real thing that we will encounter if Project 2025 policies get enacted. And beyond the actual policy document, Project 2025 is trying to be sensitive to the concern that they had in Trump's first term that he wasn't positioned to fire enough career government employees as effectively. And so they've already created a list of more than 14,000 vetted conservative people who are ready to step in and immediately take positions in the Trump administration if he gets elected. Like, day one, they're ready to flood the Trump administration with loyal conservatives who are ready to take Project 2025 and, like a playbook, execute it as well as they can.
Ugh.
Which is really scary.
And we're not even going to know that flood is coming because NOAA isn't going to predict it.
Man, NOAA is really trying to do too much, I think. And I want to close this section with a quote from disgraced former Project 2025 director Paul Dans. Project 2025 is not a white paper. We are not tinkering at the edges. We are writing a battle plan, and we are marshaling our forces. Never before has the whole conservative movement banded together to systematically prepare to take power day one and deconstruct the administrative state.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that is a scary prospect for the future. But it's not clear immediately how that will go. So you might be wondering, are there any projections for what Project 2025 being implemented will actually look like? The answer is yes. There are. This nonpartisan group called Energy Innovation did a projection for what would happen if Project 2025 policies were implemented. And I want you to take a look at this graph with me and describe what you see.
So the title of the graph is Greenhouse Gas Emissions, Million Metric Tons of CO2. The gray line represents current policies, and it starts all the way over at 2005. And it's, got a little ups and downs, but it's sort of steadily going down until we hit about 2035, and then it kind of levels off.
That's right.
And then the orangey yellow, I'm going to call it a mustard line above it, represents what the greenhouse gas emissions would be under Project 2025. And it branches off starting at, would you believe, the year 2025.
Wow.
And it ends up being sort of leveled off where we are now. So it would maybe decrease a little bit, but we're basically no longer reducing our carbon emissions.
That's right. So the gray line is the current path we're on now, given all the policies we've got in place. That's the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure law, and various other, environmental policies.
And also just kind of the way that technology is going, which is why even under 2025, you see a hair fewer emissions.
Yeah, that's right. And then the mustard line, very good call on that color. That's the Project 2025 line. And that represents a 27% increase in emissions compared to the business as usual gray line.
Now, we want to fight climate change by increasing CO2.
Theoretically, if we increase it enough, we can go all the way around back to zero.
Got it.
I'm not sure that is possible, so it would probably be better to decrease, but it's
nice to know that there's a plan B.
That's true. And it's like in blackjack, it's possible that if you get to 121, they have to pay you double. But
it's just that no one's ever done it before. Sure. Yeah,
that's
okay.
Right. All right. So if you're feeling bad, there's actually good news because this graph has a third line on it. And Nicole, can you describe that third, the blue line?
I would call it more of a navy.
Navy what?
Line. The navy blue line is what will happen if we have continued climate leadership, which I don't know exactly what that is, but presumably it's building on the Inflation Reduction Act and decreasing emissions even more. And if we do everything that whatever the blue line represents does, by 2050, we will be at net zero emissions.
That's right. It is a line that posits we can get to net zero by 2050, and it represents a 52% decrease in emissions by 2030, all the way down to net zero by 2050. It is ambitious, but it's also kind of what we need to get to in order to have a livable climate for future humans. Mm-hmm. Energy Innovation calls that line continued climate leadership. Mm-hmm. And if I might interpret that would be if we had a president and another president and another president and a bunch of policymakers who saw climate change for the crisis that it is and made policies to reflect that analysis of climate change, aka we're sufficiently worried about it that they decided to change our country for the better, that's where we would get that blue line.
Ugh, could you imagine?
I'm trying really hard, and all I'm seeing is this fucking blue line, and I'm like, come on, blue already. That blue line is the emissions trajectory we would take if we had climate-friendly policies. So there are a couple of different policy plans out there, but our friends over at Evergreen Action have put together what we think is a really good action plan. And so we partnered with them on this episode to talk about the Evergreen Action Plan 2.0, which has a bunch of policy proposals that should fit that net zero by 2050 dark blue line from Energy Innovation.
So it's sort of like Project 2025, but it doesn't suck and is for clients. It's like a Project 2050.
That's right. It is a sort of bizarro Project 2025 that is actually good and would help a lot of different people instead of just a couple of very rich companies.
Great. Hit me. What's in it? I'm receptive to whatever this plan is.
Okay. Well, first of all, you're going to love that it is 1/16 the size of Project 2025.
Thank God.
It is less a manifesto and more an actual policy plan.
Great.
It doesn't include pornography, is saying the word transgender. So their plan's broken into 7 different sections, which includes things like fostering cleaner and more competitive industries, decarbonizing homes and buildings, providing support to communities and local economies during a clean energy transition, empowering not just the federal, but also state and local governments to participate in building a more sustainable future, and encouraging and leading international climate initiatives. But I really want to talk to you about 2 chapters in particular that I think are very necessary, but not sufficient in themselves, steps to creating a cleaner world that we all actually want to live in and enjoy our natural environment.
It really feels like you're negging these steps when you say, like, you're necessary, but not sufficient.
I guess what I don't want to do is tell people that they can be like, you know what, I only liked step 3, so fuck all the other ones.
Okay, hit me with the only 2 steps I need to know about or put into place.
No, Nicole, no. They're necessary, but not sufficient.
Oh, not sufficient.
Nicole, I love having you in my life. You are a necessary, but not sufficient part of my enriched life.
Wow, that hurts, but I understand.
This is how I talk to everybody. I give them cold, hard truths at all times.
Is this a preview of your wedding vows?
Yes. Nicole, I'm not marrying you. All right, so one chapter that I really want to talk about is the clean and effective national grid. So if we're zooming out, we're basically saying, where are there a lot of emissions? The transportation sector.
Totally.
And the power generation sector.
Also, yes.
And the transportation sector is just like running through gasoline. And the power generation sector is using a lot of fossil fuels to generate electricity. So step one is you get power generation to be clean and renewable. And so it's not polluting at the same rate that it currently is. And step two is you get cars to run on the power grid.
Great.
Which is, as we've just mentioned, clean and renewable.
Right.
So in those two steps, you knock out the emissions generated by power generation and the emissions generated by cars by modernizing and electrifying everything.
Does the transportation section also, I assume, include public transit investment? Yeah,
yes.
okay.
All right. So number one, the clean and effective national grid. So this is a shared clean energy goal that is directing investment and job creation. This is basically trying to create a standard and a mandate for power generation via clean and renewable sources. And as the years go by, we get more and more of our electricity from clean sources until it's like almost all clean energy.
But Rollie, isn't that communism?
Yes, that is communism. And I didn't say this, but at the end of that, everyone will get lined up and shot for eating too many borschts. But before that, it's going to be pretty sweet.
Okay.
And then the second critical piece of that is a national grid law. So when you think about the grid, like the power grid, people tend to think about that like, oh, really well planned out, very robust grid.
Absolutely not.
Not at all. It was like cobbled together from various cities that grew at different rates than they thought. Like the transmission lines are really vulnerable. They cannot carry the capacity that we need them to.
They can't handle squirrels.
Yeah. They can't handle like tree branches. Also, the grid was built when we were using a lot of coal. So it's kind of built around immediately dispatchable fossil fuels. And we're like generating all this solar power that's kind of hard to integrate with this old grid that we have. It's like that quote that's attributed to Einstein about like if you judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, you're going to think that fish is stupid or something.
That sounds like what Einstein would say.
Yeah, it's close. I don't even think Einstein said the original
fucking
one.
Stupid fish.
This dumbass fish can't even climb this tree. I put all this fish food at the top of this tree and it starved to death, okay? Anyway, it's like we need an updated grid. We need to put money into the grid, and a national grid law would allocate resources to strengthening the grid, hardening the grid, and allowing renewable energy to more easily integrate into the grid. There's a whole lot more to that, but the baseline is like we've got to fix the dilapidated, decrepit grid. We always hear about like American infrastructure is totally fucked up.
We have to start thinking about that in terms of the grid and not in terms of like potholes.
Yeah.
Which are not good, but like the grid is like really what we got to start thinking about.
Yeah. You don't have to fix a pothole in order to turn on your refrigerator, but you do need a robust grid. And so those are two of a handful of different policy solutions for a clean and effective national grid. And then we're getting to your friggin' Nicole's bread and butter, healthy communities with a modern transportation system.
And I assume this is the part where they talk about jailing librarians.
That's right. You put every librarian in prison, make them make license plates.
You put all of the librarians onto the train from Snowpiercer.
But first you build the train, which is public transportation.
Yes. Okay, good.
Checkmate. All right, so in brief, Section 3 is about building on the existing federal, state, and local momentum by expanding carbon pollution standards for vehicles, increasing electric vehicle rebates, building out charging infrastructure, developing a national plan for electrifying our freight network. Can you fucking believe that? We have rail, but it's still not powered by electricity.
I can believe that.
Why? This section also talks about building out passenger rail, which I've heard you like.
Love it.
It's also got initiatives to reconnect those communities that were torn apart by racist highway projects.
I've heard of those.
And you said you were
No, I'm strongly against those.
I'm sorry. I gotta update my I feel like I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. Never talked to her.
Yeah.
I disagree with a lot of what she says, but I have never heard a single thing that she says. I'm just disagreeable generally. It's also looking to make sure that the next generation of electric vehicles are made in the United States using union labor. We're talking like a last mile problem policy.
Wow.
We're talking cycling infrastructure. Ooh. We're talking building housing near transit infrastructure. Ooh. We're talking about walking. We're trying to make sure people can like walk from their house to a grocery store without getting killed by a fucking Ford F-250.
Auga!
Is that the modded horn in your Ford F-250?
Yeah.
That's why people aren't hearing it. Anyway, there's a ton of policies in the Evergreen Action Plan 2.0. I encourage you to check it out. We got a link in the show notes for it. But it's nice to see that there is an actual cohesive plan for how we're going to get to net zero by 2050. That's not just like a blue line on a screen. So I really appreciate our partners over at Evergreen Action for putting that together. And after spending like a full month looking at 900 fucking pages of like, cut this, poor people don't deserve that, let's take these people's rights away, it's nice to go through a under 100 page PDF and see like, oh yeah, we want to build out transportation infrastructure.
What if we made people's lives a little bit better?
Yeah. And I want to stress, this isn't just like, oh, it would be nice if this happened. This isn't like a wish list. These are actual policy initiatives that could get enacted that would kind of lead us into this virtuous cycle territory.
Great.
And I will note that Evergreen Action 2.0 implies the existence of Evergreen Action 1.0, which was their first plan that they promoted to the Biden administration. And Evergreen Action 1.0 had a bunch of policies in it that are very much reflected in the Biden-Harris administration's first term, including the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Law.
Oh, cool. And so this one will be even better. It's like how like Paddington, the movie, came out and we were like, wow, that was really good. And then Paddington 2 came out and we were like, holy shit.
Honestly,
let's fucking go.
Honestly, it was more like Paddington 2 came out and we were like, what do you mean watch Paddington 2? And they're like, seriously, watch it. And we watched Paddington 2 and we're like, holy shit, that was a great movie.
Yeah.
Is that based on something? And they're like, yeah, Paddington 1.
And then you went back and watched Paddington 1. You're
nice.
like, wow, this rocks.
Good job, creators of Paddingtons 1 and 2. And good job, creators of Evergreen Action Plans 1 and 2.
Wow, full circle.
Okay, so obviously, do I wish there was a candidate whose first and foremost priority was to address climate change and reduce emissions? Yes, I do.
Oh,
I do wish that.
I was going to say no.
But do I also live in the real world where we have to make a choice between two candidates, and one of the candidates is like a fucking Macy's Day Parade blimp who solicited $1 billion, I'm going to say, in my opinion, bribe from the fossil fuel industry in order to make policies that they would like.
And making his way down 34th Street now.
Bringing up the rear of the parade, as always, Santa Claus writing Donald J. Trump. Yeah, I mean, the point is there are two candidates, and one of them is going to accomplish the opposite of what I think is smart, and the other one has a chance of accomplishing the policies that I really think are important to pass. And so I'm going to vote for the Kamala Harris candidate.
You might say that Kamala Harris is necessary, but not sufficient to fix climate change.
Fuck, that's a great way to close that out, Nicole. So in conclusion, it's important that you register to vote and that you go to the polls and you vote Harris Walls, because the alternative is a guy who thinks climate change is a literal hoax, and that's just not the kind of guy I think is going to pass the kinds of policies that are going to stop us from having a horrible climate catastrophe.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, you never know. You could go all the way around and back to perfect climate policy. So check out the show notes. Make sure you're registered to vote. We've also got a link to the Climate Change Makers page where they're working with Vote Forward to do letter writing campaigns to nonpartisan swing state voters. Get those letters in the mail ASAP. And also, remember, we got to hold these people to task. So voting for the Harris Walls ticket is not enough. Once they get elected, we got to really get out there and make sure that they are hearing that climate action is what everybody wants. It's what's good for the country. And also, the IRA happened because of climate activists just like you.
Totally. The IRA passed because climate activists were so outspoken about we have to have climate action.
Yeah, it would not have even been considered if there weren't like legions of people concerned about the environment constantly reminding Joe Biden that he's got to pass this thing. So props to him. Let's build on that success. Let's keep on moving.
Yeah, we're going to turn y'all fired into y'all fired up to vote.
Pokemon, go to the polls!
Cut that.
All right, Nicole, let's knock out a quick little improv section here.
Love it.
Now, one thing that we both learned in the UCB is when in doubt, do a press conference.
Because you can get everybody in that scene.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let me knock one out here. I'll give a press conference as a Project 2025 member, and you can just be the reporter.
And I'll be the group. Okay, great, wonderful.
This is after the Trump campaign has tried to distance themselves from Project 2025. All right. That concludes my remarks. Does anyone have any questions for me, a member of Project 2025?
Mr. Spokesman.
Yes, go ahead.
This is me, Paula Clark, Cub reporter at the Denver Express.
Reporter?
Cub reporter.
You're a Cub reporter.
Cub reporter.
Okay, go ahead.
What exactly is the connection between Project 2025 and former President Donald J. Trump?
Okay, thanks for asking this question. There's no connection. We have no connection with Donald Trump. We are a group that writes a bunch of policy, and we're trying to get whoever is in charge to implement our policy. That's it.
Mr. Spokesman.
Yes, the fucking 19-year-old in white guy dreadlocks and a drug rug. Yes, go ahead.
What's up? This is Kev the Chronic O'Sullivan. I'm from High Times Magazine.
Okay.
So you said that you don't have any connection to Donald Trump.
That's right.
But then also Donald Trump did a speech at your the dinner, and that so if you don't have can you explain that?
Certainly I can explain that. We had Donald Trump there as the entertainment section.
Mr. Spokesman.
Okay, go ahead. I guess Southern plantation owner from the turn of the century.
Now I might just be a simple country lawyer.
Okay, you are the William Jennings Bryan character from Inherit the Wind.
Exactly.
Okay,
Although for legal purposes, I think my name was something else.
Yeah, it was Doyle?
Hold on. Matthew Harrison Brady.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Anywho, now I might just be a small town lawyer, but I seem to remember a young man named Kevin from the Heritage Foundation who said that as a young conservative, he thought he would never again in his life have another president as good as Reagan, and he was wrong because they had President Trump. Now, I ask the members of the jury of this press conference.
It's just a press conference.
Does that sound like just entertainment to you?
I'll go ahead and take that question. We happen to like presidents who align with us philosophically. Okay, we don't care who they are, what their names are. If their name is Trump, that's fine, but it's not important that his name is Donald Trump. What's important is that he pass common sense policy that's good for all Americans, and if he does that, then that is good.
Mr. Spokesman?
Yes,
Mr. Spokesman?
yes.
Hi, I am Bailey Sullivan from Entertainment Weekly, spelled Bayleigh.
Wow, you could give me 10 tries, I would never get that right.
Where do you get your ideas?
Oh, nice softball question. We get our ideas from, every mainstream conservative group you ever heard of. We all come together and have ideas.
Okay, quick follow-up to that. So all of your ideas are coming from mainstream conservative groups. How can you say that when all of your ideas are so unpopular that the presidential candidate who's most likely to put them into place has actually had to distance himself from sort of your whole deal?
Okay, well, I will say that it's not a popularity contest.
It's Entertainment Weekly. It's absolutely a popularity contest.
Okay, well, the presidential election's not a popularity contest, because if it was, we haven't won the popular vote in like 20 years. But that's not important. What's important is good ideas, like banning pornography. No, not that one. Let's not say that one. Good ideas like just general good ideas that we've got in the plan. And it's not important that you guys read it. That's what I'll say.
Mr. Spokesman?
Yes, Kevin, the Smokehound O'Sullivan?
Yes, from the Porn Times.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just remind me a lot of the different guy that I just took a question from.
No, he had more of like a gravelly voice.
Can you do an impression of him?
Yeah, this is...
Or actually, he's here. Let me just have him say something.
Yeah, sorry, I was just outside catching a quick smoke break.
All right, and then let's go back to the first guy.
I sound a little bit more like this.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Now I'm sort of...
You and Bailey have been hanging out.
I'm not on trial here.
No one's on trial here.
Yes, you are.
God damn it.
I'm just a small town lawyer, and I'm putting this whole place on trial.
You're so anachronistic. You've got to be 200 years old by this point. What? Did somebody have a question for me?
Oh, yeah, it's me from the Porn Times.
I remember you from the Porn Times.
I have some serious concerns. This is the porn voice now. I'm like a sketchy porn producer now.
Okay.
I have some serious concerns about Project 2025. It's just that if we disband NOAA, how are we going to warn vulnerable communities about hurricanes?
Wow, I did not see this one coming from
The Porn
you.
Times asks the hard questions.
Thank you very much. You know, I think you'll find that people will deal with the hurricanes either way. So here's the thing. Hurricanes are coming, all right? And don't take that any other way, Porn Times guy.
I already wrote it down.
Shit. Hurricanes will happen whether we predict them or not. So what's the point of predicting them? Next question.
Mr. Spokesman.
Yes, go ahead.
David Smith from the Weather Channel.
Okay.
How am I going to jerk off?
Damn it. No further questions. No further questions. This court case is over. God damn it. The press conference is done.
I object.
No. Overruled. The Climate Deniers Playbook was created by Rollie Williams, that's me, Nicole Conlan, and Ben Boult.
Our hosts are Rollie Williams and Nicole Conlan, who is me, and our executive producer is Ben Boult.
Post-production by Eubularia Media.
Our researchers are Carly Rizzuto, Canute Haroldson, and James Crugnale.
Theme music from the smooth, sultry mind of Tony Dominic.
And artwork by Jordan Dahl, who, yes, is technically my boyfriend, but that's not why we hired him. He's actually just really good at art.
Special thanks to the Civil Liberties Defense Center.
And to all of you who actually listen to the show.
And apparently even the credits.
Now that's dedication. Have you tried turning the EPA off and on again?